Nacelle in turn. The windmills station the desert as though they have come here of their own accord. Sentience or indifference, they vessel and crank what exactly? 100 seasons in a field of quiet, the knowledge of machines, restive and spun, silent noise of all that motion. The desert's question is always, what do you want to let go? Blanch and scree, the vista scoured clean, and you can tumble your guest horse, darkest compass across the playa rear view. It will wear your leavings down to a howl. I want to believe in many things, health, justice, the moon, but all that wind, moving invisibly, it would carve itself on the rocks if it could. To see it gathering, circle, 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 is to see space flow, how inside the wind there is something else moving. I want to believe this is optimism, alien world. This next one has a headline that goes with it. The headline is, Woman Accidentally Joins Search Party Looking for Herself. And the backstory there is a woman was on a bus tour in Iceland, and at a road stop, she changed her clothes. And when she came out, people thought she was someone different. So they formed a search party looking for her previous self. She, knowing that she wasn't missing, joined in to look for the woman who was lost, who was also her. And I was just filled with recognition at this story because I feel like we're all like part of a search party looking for ourselves. So this is called, I Will Break Into My Life for My Life. A woman on a bus, a woman buying milk. You can go missing. Whispering certsy, your fingers running across the map's lava folds. To fade into the measure of daily noise, sometimes a relief, unbecoming, sometimes a spill leading out. A volcano in winter, strange birds everywhere. Certsy makes your hands tender things in pockets. Praise watching a man in a foreign post office threefold a letter and shimmy it into the envelope. Praise the clarity of running a brush through hair at a road stop. Running the hot and cold, which are both cold, you can go, pulling at a shirt's loose threads. And over styrofoam coffee, a woman is gone. Everyone agrees. Hearing her story from a distance, you do not recognize the woman is you. And they do not recognize the woman is you. Who would not join the search? No one is sure of her name, but you hold its possibility in your mouth. You want to chase her out of the night. She has come a long way, and you don't want her to miss the flood, the salt, the delicacy of ash you tongue into the air. I think a lot of writers are rereading poems that they have written before the wreck of this year in a new context. And this one kind of speaks to the silent and profound ways that we witness each other, even as strangers, and keep each other buoyed. And I feel like I'm mostly experiencing everyone in my life through some kind of window right now. This is, outside my window is a window. For years, I needed to be in motion, the first to get up and leave, the one who kept on walking, like I needed to walk until I understood I existed. More tangible than talk, I crossed my city from one end to the other, bay to shore and back, crossed Prague and Indiana and the abandoned railway line to the bird sanctuary, to the warehouse scattered with sequins and feathers where they made drag movies at night. Window into window, crossed a mountain in Oregon until I nearly stepped on a rattlesnake. Then I turned around and walked back again, as if walking were a kind of breathing. Metronome, sway, the path, a heart step. It hurt to stop, then not. What changed but a key slipping into a knot, and staying became the bearable thing. Art of the window, glass scrim, to be both the measured eye of the canvas and the one appraising the scene. Crows on a pomegranate tree, a neighbor giving his boy a shave on the porch. When I lived in Michigan, it rained every Monday for 3 months, and I ran to the window, hearing the garbage truck's rhythmic screech like a child, though I was 35, watching the wet truck heave its claw arms toward everything I had cast away, week after week, throwing away the weight of myself in 10-gallon bags, the same tired men pulling up and hauling it away. I'm knocking against the pain. I want to see toward you and beyond you, the door in the meadow, aperture in the fog. A dog pulls a man on skis across the blizzard sidewalk. A skunk stripes its brief frame and absorbs back into the night. Outside my window is a window, radial sundial scrim. In seeing, I cast toward the person I was, toward mountain, mercenary, the tremble of wind through grasses. In perceiving, they cast back a yes, quiet enough to startle the atoms, that we might move between distances, past and present, inside the self and out. It is not a small thing to be the quiet eye, the furthering step, or that this exchange is worth something, never knowing why a grief came or left, and never knowing all those who have steadied us there, watching or passing, unlocking each other silently with our little keys of witness. This is a shorter one. Crickets, vespers. Beyond the terribly bright and curious tender, we know what little and much the grass knows. God's in charge of wholly nothing, but to keep reaching toward all space, salt meadow, skin of the ghost wave rising. Keep the bandwidth of our chatter slow. Ever slow, the rain falling in its own perception. There are more ways to listen than weep. Slow the cricket nocturne, a human lifespan. Hear our voices sing back. Angels in the field. Clock, clock, what have we come for? So I'm teaching poetry upstairs, and my husband is teaching poetry at the same time downstairs, and my 2 kids are doing their schoolwork down the hall, and the dog is on my lap, and that's just kind of the way we're doing our days right now. So this is a poem about working with my son on homework during a time when he was still going to school, but I wanted to share this one. Wildest. The hour of snacks and homework, and we're enlarging the world with adverbs of scale. See how easily smooth becomes smoother, how we can silk it further to the sheen that is most itself. You are taller, stronger, a little farther from my center, but not farthest. May we stop here in the horizon note of farther. And you want to know how accretion applies to wild. One field left longer, one never entered by anything that sought to change it. Say wild, and the honeysuckle curls round the cedar, and the cedar's silence mats a soft floor in winter, whose most faithful withholding buckles the cloud head. Say wilder, and it's less bewildering, more why. The cloud funneling now, the animals hurried into the barn, and we're left staring at the floodwaters, salting our questions. Wilder rakes its impulsive hand over us, and we ride off the road into the night. And wildest, what sprung cosmos is that? I hope we never see it enough to know, as here in this measured plot, we keep turning the hose on the fire ants and they dutifully froth up. Somewhere lives expanses never perceived, all the lost coasts, outbacks, untrodden tundras of this world. It's Earth's too wild to survive us. My boy wants to know how wild it gets. As long as there is land that has never breathed in our borrowed must of oxygen, then the mandrakes quiver in their sacks. As you curl into sleep, the dryad is out there, pressing her most unburdened head against evening's northeast altar. So when we got started, I saw a few Jennifers, right? And so this poem is especially for you Jennifers and for the 850,000 Jennifers of the peak Jennifer era. And anybody who knew all those Jennifers and loved those Jennifers. This is Jennifers of the 1970s. We were part of a tribe, at least 3 to a class. You could scan a room and find us everywhere, swishing a hula hoop around our Jennifer hips. Enough of us to populate Fiji or Damascus. We orbited our own planet, the paisley atmosphere swirling as the bell bottoms tolled and the skyrockets took flight. Mirrored disco ball, each facet released another, known in relation to the initials of our last names, latch hooked on yarn pillows, ironed on to the back of our concert gut shirts. Macrame belt, God's eye, we came out of a dreamsicle, rained like corn husk girls, easily wrapped into skirts at the church bazaar. Our decade was barefoot, tapestry, buttercup, lemon lime, rick-rack, easy cheese. To be so abundant, bearing a name that everyone agreed was lovely, a triple note they wanted to repeat. I stopped hearing it, the swift hook of the J, little gem in the mouth, the soft fur landing, all folded in the envelope of the common. A Xanadu of Jennifers, a roller rink of Jennifers, a decahedron of Jennifers. I could always see the collective of us. Unwittingly part of the ensemble, yet to be one meant we were also gifted an alter ego, a spray-on leotard or chameleon foil lurking under our jumpers. I run into one of us now in yoga pants, maybe a child at the hip. We're tired, we've seen some things, but we're pointed to the horizon. And sometimes a few of us still rise when the latte order is called and our gently wrinkling faces smile knowingly. Glitter wave we all came out of so decisively. We're the Fosse dance in the musical that gets revived in summer community theater. The cake still holding its layers in the rain, the silver moon boot that flares in the late October sky. That wave was to Jennifer Kelly. Antlers. Out of velvet, winter. Out of the center, the idea splits. Wilder stars, my eyes leap, my head is soft. It does not end here in the cleft between my ears. Fragment, dream, map that arrows in the mist. In the widening fields, I become silent, a stillness that makes light in spring harden into branches. Say what I will bear, what flanked impulse swells in me. Mothbone amulet, the milked horn flares. I go sky, crown in all directions, run like a tree into the wind. This next poem is called Vigil. And I feel like we're kind of in an ongoing state of being in vigil. But the vigil of this poem was the feeling that we had in our town after the shooting in San Bernardino 5 years ago. I had a friend who was shot 7 times and survived, and another friend who was a first responder. And after that happened, they thought that there was a accomplice in our neighborhood, and they just had helicopters circling over our house for days. We live next to a park, and so it's all of that space in this poem. Vigil. After the shooting, after the helicopters for days circled our house, then left. The owls we'd never heard but must have been there all along, leaned in toward the house like lamplight, homed toward our small, predictable messes, saying what we could not. The body's bellow, choral from the damp cedar, from the hard planks of the heart. There are 2 hearts, one for kindness, one for grief. And their staying in had nothing to do with us, the figures in the house tending. Though their calls felt like sap easing the shock, but because they'd been open to their own kind of terror in the air, they lowered to our windows, watchful, tuning the wrecked sky back to stillness. Okay, I'm just going to read 2 more. This is called Snake in the Zendo, and it was written after experience staying at Tasahara, which is a mountain Zen center in Carmel Valley, California. And it was recently evacuated with the fires, and it's often evacuated most summers. The Zendo is an area where everybody goes to meditate, and the Zenji is the Zen master. This is called Snake in the Zendo. Folded as letters about failure from the future, we are too serious in our attempt, wall facing, arranging small pillows with mudra hands. Grace is not practicing being graceful, it's emerging from the scrim of every discomfort with greater discomfort. Once I wept in my car and a woman knocked on my window, then held me in the gray parking lot morning. It was not extraordinary, but when I grip the steering wheel in terror, I see her hands reaching toward the glass. Make everything part of the practice, the Zenji says. Jay that swipes your toast, cleaning toilets in the guest house, forest fire sweeping down the valley, the monks rush to meet, unraveling their black robes of fire hose. Until the sobbing starts, a woman in the corner whose body shudders whole each grief shock and wave. Collective we, great erasure. Do we imagine we are shouldering her grief in a silent and beautiful gesture? Or are we trying so hard to do something right, we have surrendered compassion in the stone of the Buddha? The Zenji's reed snaps its mindful warning against the wood floor as she sobs the meditation pre-dawn into day, our eyes coolly down. And the morning after she left, a snake slid its copper into the Zendo between us, wall facing, so dutiful. Some kept sitting, though most shrieked, ran out. Oh, we passed our judgment around the breakfast table after with talk of koans. I let the J take the toast from my mouth, like spitting out sacrament. The snake could have been a metaphor, but it was also a snake. Blood in the lotus. We were trying so hard in our unhappiness, and the mountains were beautiful, crumbling under an opera of fire. If there was anything to hear, keep afraid what is fearful, and hold what demands to be held. Okay, I'm going to close with this one. Thank you again for being here to listen to me read from this book. It's the first time I've done so, and it's just been a special night. Thanks, Phil, for hosting me. How many leaves and boats gather together. Buoy the blue night, small boats lifting beyond the layers of tremble and tree. We are the watchers of the world, the note takers, the lonely captains sailing over the good earth. Meanwhile, the birds fly west. If they had a religion, it would be the agreement of flight. And fish swim in silver wheels through a horizon of slow blooming sound. Leave the moonlight to itself, what little may be answered. Let night whisper into the hull of your ear the other language. Dark wildwood, that we ride silently into the harbor alone and no one sees. Arrival or departure, but that it matters to be so briefly carried to so close a place as home on such a thin and flickering sea.